Hey everybody, and welcome to another BookTube episode. My name is David Walters, host of Fanfi Addict, and today I have with me author Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing great, man. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. So, how are things in your neck of the woods? You're a professor, correct?
I am. Yeah, this was my first week of teaching, actually. I have one in-person class and then one remote class. And the in-person class is kind of fun. We're all sitting, 6 feet apart from each other. It's a class that's rated for like 42 people, and we're only 10 people, or 11 counting me. No, 10 counting me now. And it's good, man. We're all being safe, and we all got masks, so we have to like speak loudly and stuff.
Please tell me you're wearing the Voorhees mask.
No, I found that my voice can't hardly get through that, man. But it's like Jason never needs to talk, so he doesn't need to have a voice that projects through the mask holes.
Right, right. He's just got
Yeah,
to have deep, threatening breathing, heavy breathing.
yeah, yeah. He speaks with his machete.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean about the about school. So my wife's a first grade teacher, and she's on maternity leave until after Labor Day, but she's been kind of intermittently going up there to get her sub plans and stuff ready for the following days. And
Oh,
yeah, they're doing all in person right now with a couple of kids doing virtual learning.
yeah.
It's crazy because they've like doubled or tripled the amount of work that the teachers have to do.
Hmm.
Uh, and the kids are in the classroom except for about 15 minutes where they get to go to recess.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, they
No,
eat lunch in there and everything. I was like, I can't. I mean, I could do that. I could see high school being okay with
yeah,
it, but
yeah, yeah.
man, 7, 8 year olds.
Oh man, for sure. It's hard to get like the little kids to remember from minute to minute that they're socially distancing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they went from 20 kids. I think they're down to 15, and we
yeah,
went and like measured out 6 feet between desks and so forth, which is kind
yeah,
of impossible because elementary classrooms really aren't that big anyway.
yeah, yeah.
And then on top of that, they've got like these little hooks for their masks, and they've got a little bin next to it which has zip tied to all the desks. So they can put all their stuff in, like their lunchbox and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to keep kids away from each other
Yeah.
is impossible.
There's now that we're talking about this, there's an old story by Dan Simmons called This Year's Class Picture, and it's about a teacher who is pushing through and teaching during a pandemic. It's a really good story too.
Really?
I suggest you and everybody check it out. It's really good, man.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just kind of first and foremost, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously we know your name, but kind of how
Yeah.
you got into writing, and then kind of how you got to this point in your career in writing.
Yeah. I am Stephen Graham Jones. Man, it's a long story how I got into writing. I always meant to be a farmer. That's all. And well, either a farmer or manual labor. That's the only two things I was ever cut out for. And so now I've got like somewhere above 25 books, and this one, the Only Good Indians, is the most recent one. And Night of the Mannequins is out come, what is it, Tuesday, out Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they're both slashers. My next novel coming out, which I can't really speak about except for in the vaguest terms, I'm kind of under a gag order, is also a slasher. I think I have two slashers coming out, really, actually. And slashers are what's closest to my heart. So, I mean, what started me writing? I mean, I don't know. The reason I still write, maybe that's a way I can narrow the question down a little bit, is because I like to hide from the world. The world is confusing to me. The world does not make sense. But on the page, if I do everything right, I can make the world make sense. And because I like the world to make sense, I hide on the page as much as I can.
Hmm. I gotcha. Yeah, and what is it particularly about slashers? Because I know you've written quite a few.
Yeah, yeah.
Your most recent releases are pretty indicative of that. So
Yeah, for sure. In the upcoming slashers, I got hooked on slashers when I was in 8th grade. I was living in Wimberley, Texas, right outside Austin, back when it was like a little place. I guess it's still little in comparison for a lot of people, but it's a lot bigger now, anyways. And I got to running with this group of 8th graders who somebody had an in at the video rental store. So every Friday we'd traipse from school to the video rental store and come out with a stack of six Freddy, Michael, Jason slashers, and we'd go out to another friend's house. His house was way out in the trees, and along a creek, and he had a separate garage. And his dad had put an old couch and a little like 13-inch TV in there with a VCR. And VCRs were still to us kind of new technology back then. And we'd put those VHS tapes in and we would watch Jason, Michael, and Freddie do their thing, and we'd scream and, cringe and hide behind the couch. And it was gory and terrible and wonderful all at the same time. Then come about 2 a.m, I guess, his dad, the guy who owned the guy whose garage we were in, he would put on a Freddy glove and come out to the garage and scrape those plastic claws down the middle garage. And that was a terrifying sound. And we knew it was him too, because he was always doing this. And knowing it was him didn't change it even a little bit. It was still just as terrifying. Because he wasn't a completely trustworthy guy. He might be taking it for real tonight, and we would just pile out the side of that garage and run through the blackness. And for some reason, if we could jump in the creek, that meant we were safe. I don't know why the creek is supposed to be safe from slashers, but that's what we thought. And that feeling of just running blind through the darkness with tears going out of my eyes and a smile on my face, to me, that hooked me for the rest of my life on slashers. That feeling of screaming and laughing kind of in the same response. That's what I look for on the page. That's what I want on the page when I inhale stuff, and so when I'm putting stuff on the page, that's what I want to do as well if I can.
Yeah, and it's almost, it's nice that you write what you love. It's not you're not going, okay, what does everybody like? Okay, I've got to write a book like that. You kind of go, what speaks to me? I'm going to put it down. Okay, I love this. Awesome.
Yeah. But at the same time though, talking about, like, I've heard people saying that this is like the front edge of a slasher mini boom or renaissance or whatever, a resurgence of the slasher, and I hope it is for sure, because I'll definitely ride that until it goes out, But but I wonder if, like, our impulse towards the slasher right now, if it's there, and if it's not just me, isn't that we're trying to find solace in horror in trying times, social, political, environmental unrest, all that stuff. I wonder if it's that in the land of the slasher, in a slasher reality, the magic of it, what's so attractive to it to me is that wrong is punished. Slashers are inherently fair worlds. If you do wrong, 10 years later, somebody's coming for you. He might be wearing a mask. He might be a monster. Who knows? It might be your best friend, but the scales of balance the scales of justice are gonna be balanced. And I think in today's world, we see so much injustice that we can hide in a slasher where the world is fair and feel whole. It feels like this is a place I could possibly live. At the same time, slasher worlds are dangerous places to live, because you cut somebody off in traffic and, that night there's a slasher in your closet cutting your head off, and you're like, I didn't deserve this. I maybe deserve to get cut off, but not cut off, man.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, what's so nuts, you say that, but road rage is something else. And I feel like it's just gotten worse over the past few years. But I just feel like anger is just running really this year. I mean, I know 2020 has not obviously been this year. I mean, we've kind of gone from low to low to low, and just continued that way. But yeah, I mean, I feel like any little thing is going to push somebody over the edge. And you're right, somebody will follow you home and be with a tire iron in your driveway. You just never know.
Yeah, man, you never know.
And you're kind of right. I mean, there are a lot of I would say a lot of slashers, but there's several slashers coming out, at least here in the next months or in the previous month or two. I know Adam Cesaire's Clan of the Field just came out. That was phenomenal. They put it out as YA, but I mean, it's honestly for everybody. I thought it was fantastic.
It's a ball of a novel. It's a wonderful story, and that it is interesting that it's marketed as YA, because you're right, it does go everywhere. But the slasher, I mean, no matter how gory or really what content it's got in it, it really is it's quite often a high school story, so it is kind of like targeting the issues that are central to the high school demographic, I think. And I'm totally happy with that. I mean, you see like so-called grown-up slashers every once and again, like the first season of Slasher, it was kind of a grown-up slasher. And then of course there's slashers in college, but there's not really, it's kind of like a big smear from high school to college. You're still in
Mhm.
class, you still have teachers and all that stuff. I kind of have. I'd be interested in setting a slasher around in the higher age range. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think it would change the dynamics some.
Put one in like a nursing home.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got one like that all sketched out. I just need to find time to write it,
But I say I think you might be the first person to do that, so definitely go in that territory. So I do have a question. It's an interesting one, and and Missy's asking. So, how do you feel when the speculative fiction community links you with an author, say like Rebecca Roanhorse? She says,
Mhm.
"You write horror and she writes fantasy, but everybody seems to kind of pair you guys together."
Mhm. Rebecca and I are with the same publisher, so that's one reason we probably get paired. We have the same editor, even, and we're also friends. And we're also both native. And I think it's probably that we're both native, which is what gets us paired the most often, probably. People may not even realize we have the same publisher. And no, I love being paired with Rebecca is great. I mean, I'm just riding her coattails whenever that happens, because she's blasting
Yeah,
off into the stratosphere. And she's
yeah,
so good. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like she. I mean, I just say that she came out of nowhere, but I feel
Mhm.
like, and I can't. Is it Trail of the Lightning? I can't remember
That's the first one. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that one kind of hit hard, and then it just was like explosions everywhere, and then she's got the
Yeah.
new novel coming out from Saga
Yeah.
pretty soon. So yeah, but I think it's kind of neat. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't want to look at it as because you're both native. That's the reason that you guys are paired together. You want to
Mhm.
because you're great writers and you're doing well and with your publishers and so forth. But do you feel that that's going to continue to be a thing, like that people are just paired together based on heritage or race, or do you feel like it's going to
Uh,
end up being, oh, they're really great writers and they both write
uh,
for the publisher, you
you
know?
know that you always want to get paired, or just you always want to like show up places because of your writing instead of because of who you are.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it'll probably keep happening, and I think the reason it'll keep happening is just because of the way magazines and newspapers have, like, they'll have like 15 writers pitching stories to them, and the writers have to find an angle in, and those
Mhm.
writers, sometimes the angle that's going to get the stamp of approval or the green light to go ahead and do this will be these two, these four, these six native writers are changing the world in this way, or pushing back against this, or whatever it is. And I think those are the kind of stories that probably tend to get greenlit more because people realize that there's been a lack of diversity, and I mean in all the fields, not just in publishing and not just in speculative fiction. But
Mhm.
so in some sense, those kind of articles can, I don't know, not act as a corrective, but they can at least make the problem louder.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because and I'm also I'm curious to know this is a completely separate question. Do you feel like the Only Good Indians? I mean, obviously, with it being your newest release, do you feel like that's kind of bumping you up even more than where you were with all of your last releases? I feel like it's gotten maybe the most love out of all of your other novels.
Yeah.
Maybe not in its actual maybe like not awards and stuff, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like and your Amazon reviews went up super quick, your
Mm-hmm.
Goodreads went up super quick, and you had a lot of really early phenomenal reviews and blurbs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that is maybe your
Yeah.
best selling, best work to date?
No, it's definitely my best selling, and the one that's had the longest legs and the longest tail too. It's still making the rounds. It's 5 or 6 weeks after publication, and it's still in the our sphere of awareness. But
Mhm.
yeah, it has. And the trick is, as a writer, you don't really get to choose which of your books are going to accidentally have a surprise rocket booster under them. You think every one of them deserves a rocket booster under them, of course. And
Right.
um, yeah, so all I do is I just write the best book I can, and then sometimes, like with Saga, I end up with both an editor and a publisher, and a publicist or a marketing department who are all in sync. That doesn't
Mhm.
always happen. Like with Mongrels, it before it came out, the editor had taken another job somewhere else, so the book was kind of orphaned, which is means it's kind of languishing between people, and falling between the cracks and departments and stuff. And I've had that happen a lot. I've had books get orphaned before publication, and luckily not this time. And I plan on being with this publisher and this editor for a good long time. So hopefully we can do it again and again.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I just being in like the book review world for a while, I've noticed how publishing, people change all the time. Like positions
Mm-hmm.
change, people go to different publishers. They
Mm-hmm.
may be there for 6 months and transition to something else, and
Yeah, yeah.
but it's constantly changing. There's only a few publishers I think I've kept the same person for a couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I mean, the trick is in the publishing industry, of course, you want to climb. You want the corner office or the better paycheck or the bigger title or whatever it is. But it's really hard to go up the ladder in your own building, say. But so you have to go to the building beside you to go up one level, and then to the building over here to go up another level. So you kind of go like all over Manhattan to be able
Yeah.
to get up to that corner office you want, that's just the way the industry is. It's not nothing bad about it. It's probably not the only industry that's like that too.
Yeah, I feel like it's you kind of state a lot more because all of a sudden emailing with a publicist or somebody in marketing or something.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't work here anymore. I'm now at
Mm-hmm.
Scholastic or I'm now at
Yeah,
Tour
yeah,
or something," and you're just like, "Oh, so okay,
yeah, yeah.
I'll follow you there and find somebody else, I guess."
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice. I mean, after a while of doing that, you kind of know everybody too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, yeah, and it's probably nice as an author too because
Mhm.
you know who to shop your books to depending on
Yeah,
where you're at, and if
yeah,
say you published a book with say Del Rey, and then your editor there moved to Tor, you're like, okay, well maybe I could get something with
yeah.
Tor, or I could at least submit another story there, which I
Mhm.
guess with them changing things, I mean authors are always all over the place with publishers too, not always,
Yeah, yeah.
the Stephen Kings of the world, it's pretty much one and done.
Mhm.
I see several jumping from HarperCollins to Tor to
Yeah,
Penguin, or sometimes doing self-publishing and then sometimes doing smaller presses. So,
yeah,
do
yeah.
you? I've had a few authors like Josh Mallerman. He says that he's kind of keeping this thing where he drops one novel and one novella a year. Do
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
ever envision yourself doing that, or do you just push it out?
Um,
Hope it releases when it does.
yeah, I just let it release whenever the publisher and my agent think is good. But it probably will come out to some version of that. Yeah. Like right now, I have a big backlog of novels I've written, and so they'll be coming out, and more novellas too. So I imagine it will become staggered like that: novel, then novella, then novel, and with a collection in there as well.
Yeah, I gotcha. So how many guys, let's start this way. How many novels have you published so far? How many novellas have you published so far? And how
Mhm.
many stories have you published? Because I know it's
Mhm.
insane amounts.
Yeah, no, that's hard to. I never know how to count. I think for novels, it's probably about 24, 25 that I've published, and it could be 26, somewhere between 24 and 26, I'm thinking. And one of those is co-written with Paul Tremblay, so I never know, does that count as a half, and do I have to wait till I have another co-written for it to be one? I don't know. And then I have three standalone novellas published: Sterling City, Mapping the Interior, and Night of the Mannequins as of September 1st. And let me think. I have five or six story collections published, I guess. I'm not sure about that. Somewhere around there. And as for short stories, about a year and a half ago, I did count them up, and it was like 325 or 35, somewhere around there. And I've published a few since then, and yeah,
That's
that's it.
crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the first story I ever read by you was a Tor.com short story that you read. I think was it The Night Cyclist?
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice, yeah, nice
Yeah,
cyclist.
yeah. It's kind of when I first got into, I guess, reading Tor.com novellas, and I
Mhm.
realized they had kind of like a short fiction section. You could just go on their
Mhm.
website, find stories, and
Yeah,
the cover drew me in. Kind of like, I mean, granted, I was already a fan of yours, but kind of how the good, all the good Indians drew me in, and I
yeah,
feel like that's maybe why the book is partially why the book is doing so well. It's a very standout cover.
yeah,
I mean, I haven't seen many like it. It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the antlers just kind of get you.
They do, yeah, and they give it like texture too. It
Yeah,
feels like, is embossed the right word or something like that? Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, so
Mhm.
I talked to you like a week or two ago
Mhm.
about getting a copy, And when I got it in, I just kind of unwrapped it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so awesome! And set to the side. And only today when I picked it up, and I go, that's nice. It's nice having different textures on a cover.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah,
noticed when people take pictures of it to post it online, depending on what angle it is, the antlers look different, which is pretty cool, you know?
yeah, and I like how they had I think the paperback edition was kind of a different angle. On
Oh,
it,
really?
maybe it was like the UK release, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, it is. Yeah, the type and
Yeah, but
texture.
it's
Yeah,
like I think it's on the front instead of on the
yeah,
side,
it
which is
is. Yeah,
um
yeah. And
okay. So
I believe it wraps around to the back cover too. I haven't seen it yet. It's been in the mail forever with our mail being slow right now. But yeah, it's really cool. I like that.
hold on one second. My dog has decided that he's just gonna come hang out. Come sit down. He's trying to sniff every single book in my office that he possibly. Okay, so just kind of we'll kind of start. I can't remember. Was Mongrels was before mapping, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So Mongrels. This is actually the first full length novel that I read by you, and it's
Mhm.
probably the best werewolf story that I've ever read.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about it, and maybe why you decided werewolves? I mean, I feel like you don't really fit into a mold as far as what you write. I mean, I know you're
Mhm.
more stuff's been kind of slasher, but
Mhm.
why werewolves, and kind of what can people expect from that novel?
Oh, Mongrels is the story of it's some werewolves trying to make it. You know, my issue with werewolves that I read in the books and see on screen is I always wonder what do they do the next morning? I mean, how do they pass the credit check down at the car lot? You know, what do they do about this 52nd pair of ripped jeans this year? And so I wanted my werewolves to have to deal with that daily existence, which is my way of making them real. Because I always wished werewolves were real. I still wish werewolves were real. I wouldn't want to meet one in a dark alley, but I still wish that they happened. And for me to believe in a werewolf, it has to adhere to conservation of mass. Like it can't, like a 160-pound woman can't become a 9 foot tall, 380-pound werewolf because where does that extra muscle and everything come from? And by the same token, when she transforms back, what happens to all of the extra 200 and whatever pounds? You know, is there just a pile of fat steaming there on the ground? And so I had to make the werewolves actually make as much like biological physical sense as I could. You know, I mean, to tell you the truth, they're not going to make sense ever, but I tried to make them make as much sense as I could. You know, and yeah, Mongrels is it feels like I mean I didn't know I was writing a novel when I was writing Mongrels. I thought I was just writing some werewolf stories, and then I realized, wait, if I put them kind of in order and give the people the same names, then it's a novel, you know. And so I started writing the novel.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting, having to see werewolves eke out an existence. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think now you need to write like a story about the Incredible Hulk, about how he goes from
Yeah, yeah,
to the massive things, and where all that goes.
yeah. No,
The
for
movies
sure,
obviously
for
don't
sure.
do it justice.
No, they don't. No, no, I agree. Yeah. Although, I mean, he has the gamma radiation going on, so maybe that explains everything. I don't. Gamma radiation can do a lot in the Marvel universe, you know.
Yeah, it just kind of separates it into an alternate universe, then it comes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, so second up is from Tor.com. It's Mapping the Interior.
Mhm,
I read it a couple of summers ago.
mhm,
It's absolutely phenomenal. I mean,
mhm.
it's hard to like, when you don't have synonyms sitting in front of you when you're writing a review, it's hard to just like think. So we'll just keep saying phenomenal or fantastic. Um, but yeah, talk a little bit about it. I know
Yeah.
it's more of like a ghost story,
Mhm,
and super creepy.
mhm. Yeah.
Where you came up with the idea for that story?
Mapping the interior, like I wanted to tell a ghost story. I haven't told many ghost stories really, and but the problem I always have with ghost stories is ghosts are just inherently not scary. I mean, a ghost can startle you and make you drop drop your saucer of milk or whatever you're carrying, and and whatever you're carrying down a hallway, if you see a ghost, you'll drop it,
Yeah.
and that's terrible. But so you break a cup, you break a saucer, who cares? You spill some milk. And the scary thing that ghosts usually do is they tell you some information you don't necessarily want. They a secret about someone or something that was done to them when they weren't a ghost, whatever it is. And you like your life was going along fine, but now you're burdened with this information. And now my dogs are going off.
You're fine.
And yeah. But so what I wanted to do with Mapping Interior was find a way to make a ghost actually threatening, other than with information. And so what I had to do then was make the ghost be slowly working its way back to corporality, to having a body. And then I had to come up with mechanisms for that to work, and the novel just told itself. Or the novella told itself, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Got a question for you. Have you been approached to have any of your novels made into movies or maybe even
Yeah,
TV shows?
for sure. Yeah, a lot of them. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anything like even on the horizon for those, or is it all still talk? Or
Yeah, I'm not supposed to say stuff, so let's say it's all still talk.
always,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's still on the table. Is
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Any,
yeah.
can you say which one?
No, I better not, man.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
In case you get our hopes up, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man. All right. So we'll talk about the Only Good Indians. I know we talked a little about it when I had you on the podcast several months
Mhm,
ago.
mhm,
Obviously, way before publication date.
mhm,
But I mean, I'll just say, like, as soon as I got an e-arc of it, I mean, I just
mhm,
devoured it. I don't know. I may have been one of the first people to read it outside of
mhm.
publishers and
Yeah,
publishers
probably.
jazz. But it kind of it struck me really quickly, and it really is engaging. On top of being super horrifying, because
Mhm,
your main character is seeing these visions or what he thinks are visions,
mhm,
and you kind of see them yourself because you're very descriptive on how this creature,
mhm,
creature, not
mhm,
to spoil everybody, kind of appears, and you know, the only thing that I think that got to me was how it was kind of split about halfway.
mhm,
You kind of feel like you're reading one story, and then there's a little
mhm,
bit of pause,
mhm,
but continuing on, you really get more of the background. It all kind of comes to fruition, toward the end. So did you kind of set out to write maybe two kind of separate stories that
mhm,
kind of culminate, or were
mhm.
you working on one thing and working on another thing, and then just kind of like Mongrels kind of ended
Mhm.
up being one thing?
I was just working on one thing, and I didn't really know if I was what I was writing, if it was going to be a novella or a novel or just a partial novel. Who knew what was going to happen? But um, my favorite thing when I'm reading a book is like to get to page like 120 or whatever, and then something happens on page 120, and I sit back in my seat and I'm like, oh crap. And I can feel that there's like 180 pages left, and I can't imagine how the story can keep going because this just happened. And like
Mhm.
that's how I felt when I read Gone Girl. It has that like big acceleration or that escalation in the middle, or that hinge point, I guess I would call it, and everything changes, and I was like, this can't go on. I don't see how this can possibly go on. But also I had to know. And I love that feeling when I'm reading, and so I thought in this book I'd try to do something in that same arena.
I gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, I was kind of interested because you're right. It kind of hit like a point,
Mhm.
and then like, oh, did we stop?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have quite the same reaction. I don't go, well, now where's he going to go from here? I just kind of go, what in the world can be next?
Yeah, yeah.
And I go, okay, I think I see what he's doing here. And then as it only takes 5 or so pages, and you kind of go, oh, I kind of see where he's going, and
Mhm,
almost get it's almost like you get a 2-for-1 deal.
mhm. Yeah, hopefully that's the
You just
idea.
get like two stories in one book.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean, just if you think of readers as consumers, everybody wants to get a bargain, and if you pay for one thing and feel like you're getting two things, and you want to steal away and hide it, and read it in a corner, all secret and special.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Now I have to know, do you ever, after the editing process and
Mm-hmm.
after, you send your final edits in, you're like, okay, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And besides having to, do readings and so forth, do
Mm-hmm.
you ever actually reread your novels or do you listen to them on audio?
This one I did listen to it on audio because I wanted to hear what Sean Taylor Corbett did with it, and he did amazing stuff. I thought the only of my novels that I've listened to on audio are this one and The Last Final Girl. Yeah, I haven't listened to any of the other ones, and I guess I don't know. I probably had about I don't know half of my books, maybe not quite half. Turned out in audio, and
Mhm.
but this one of the audio of this is just standout. I think I was really impressed, and also it reminded me of the story, because I wrote Only Good Indians. It feels like forever ago, and I've written 2 or 3 books since then at least, and so it was kind of like way in my rearview mirror, and but listening to it again in the audio production put it all back in my head in a wonderful way.
Yeah, I find it interesting as a reader, and even with the ability for running a blog, I'm able to read books months in advance.
Hmm.
It's still weird hearing like, oh yeah, I wrote the book like 3 or 5 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
It feels like so fresh, and we sit there
Hmm.
and think, oh yeah, the author literally just finished it, and it's going to come out 6 months after they're done. And everything. There's
Yeah.
no process to that. I mean, obviously, knowing kind of the ins and outs of the business somewhat, I know kind of how long it takes to go from writing a book to actually getting it to the
Hmm.
editor, actually getting it to a publisher.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or, sorry, from you to your agent to a publisher to an editor.
To the
And
shelf. Yeah.
a long process, but it just feels so quick when you're
Hmm.
an avid reader.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. One of my
how
novels.
long? Go ahead.
Oh, one of my novels. I wrote it. It was my second novel I ever wrote. I think I wrote it in 1999. It didn't come out until 2006. And that was a big old break.
How long? I guess from you finishing the Only Good Indians to actually it being I guess sold and so forth.
Mhm. Mhm.
How long did it take to write the novel?
I'm tabbing over right now. I'm gonna actually look at my file so I can look at the timestamp on it. Let's see. Here I go. Um,
It's the fun part about doing this live, right?
yeah, for sure, right? Um, elk, elk. I'm looking. 2019. That's wrong.
Did you say you have it,
2018.
saved under elk? Is that what you said?
Yeah, just elk. Yeah, I always name things like stupidly, and I never can find stuff
Well, I
either.
mean, that would make sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still looking.
You're good.
I've
Take your
got like
time.
I've got like it looks like about 28 elk files. This is maybe I had a different title. Let me see if it's under a different title.
Uh,
It's
what was the
not.
what was the original title?
It's one of the chapter titles now, where the old ones go.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that title. Are you gonna reuse that title?
I mean, well, now that it's been a chapter title, I don't know if I can or not. I mean, I can legally. I don't know if I can like
I say,
ethically.
but no, nobody will know.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody pays attention to chapter titles.
yeah. I am. I am not finding it. I don't know. I thought I
Oh,
could
you're
tell
good.
you. I, w-
You're
I would
good.
guess. I would guess that I wrote it in 2017 if I had to guess, but it could have been the front part of 2018. I don't know.
So do you write several books a year or several, I guess, stories a year and just kind of shelve them, and then when you
Mhm.
feel like one's ready to go, you send it off?
I do write a lot of stuff, and I just as soon as I'm finished with it, I send it to my agent, and she works with me, and we make it better and better. And sometimes she'll say, "This is the one we're going out with," or "That's the one we're going out with," and I just trust her on that because she has a like more objectivity, and also she's like more in touch with the market and everything than I am, so she knows what will move better. And so the stuff that she doesn't send out, we do just kind of keep it on the back burner for when the time is right, or to roll it into another deal or something like that.
I gotcha. Yeah, I was always curious. When you have a backlog of
Mhm.
titles, kind of. I know. I mean, again, throwing Mallerman out there because I talked to him last December. And you've seen pictures of him. Where he's just got all of his manuscripts just laid
Mhm.
out,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Which one am I going to pick this week?" And it's almost like throwing a
Yeah,
dart.
yeah,
Or which one
yeah.
to pick
No,
this
it's
year, I guess, because he does. Like I said, the
yeah.
one novel, one novella. But I'm always interested. Do you just have them kind of like stashed away, and you're like,
Mhm.
what? what should we do next? But that's interesting hearing that, your editor's like, I think this one will work better. Let's hold off on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And the bad thing is, I write novels, and I forget that I've written them. So they're in my directory, and I don't. As I was saying, I name stuff so stupidly, and so I just never open that file again. And so there's all these like surprise novels on my hard drive, you know.
Yeah. So do you ever or you think you'll find yourself like outside of like horror or slashers or
Yeah.
anything? Do you feel like you'll write some science fiction or fantasy or mystery?
Mhm.
I mean, I guess
Well, I
it's
mean,
thriller in there because you're already written thrillers. So
yeah, I've done thriller, I've done crime, I've done kind of experimental, I've done straight literary, um, I've done science fiction. I hope to do fantasy at some point. I hope to get my mind like working in a way where I can do fantasy. And yeah, with no, I don't want to. I mean, horror is my first love, and I consider myself a horror writer. But I like to play in all the fields. You know, like years ago, I was on a panel with Joe Lansdale, and somebody in the audience in the Q&A period asked him, what genre do you write in, Joe? And he said, I write the Joe R. Lansdale genre. And that's what I want. I want my answer to be that. I mean, I would love to write in Joe's genre. Don't get me wrong, but I want to write in
right.
The Stephen Graham Jones genre, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always curious because people like to obviously stamp labels on authors. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they like to say, "Oh, he's a horror author," or, "Oh, you only write fantasy."
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting to see people branch out. And now, some people branch out from just writing straight YA to trying to do
Mm-hmm.
it and kind of overdo it. So I'm always curious if you try to venture into fantasy, do you feel like you're going to be, I'm going to kind of take a step back, not try to overdo it,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of write something, see how it does, and if it does well, then I'll do something else, and if it doesn't, I've always got horror as a backup.
No, I mean, for me, horror will always be the first thing. I'll never consider it a backup. But I think with fantasy, when and if I write a fantasy novel, I'll just swing for the fences, and it probably won't be like a easy fantasy novel. It'll be something challenging, and it'll probably have a lot of blood in it too, I suspect.
Nothing
Like
wrong with that.
the one fantasy story I have published is called When Swords Had Names, and it's a story about a guy who realizes that the meat or the muscle that is like in a centaur, you have a man and a horse, and this guy finds that the meat between right where the man and the horse meet is the best bite of all. So he goes around trying to eat that, killing centaurs and get that meat. So in my fantasy, I'll probably be something in that similar vein.
Very bloody.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's a very interesting. I'll have to find that. It's a very interesting story. So I got a question for you. How do you combat writer's block?
I I never, maybe I've never experienced it, or maybe I call it something different. But to me, writer's block is just setting your standards too high. And like I never have a lack of ideas, and I don't always know where the story's going next. You do hit walls in projects, but you just bang away at the wall and you get under it, you get over it, you get through it. It's just work. Um,
Mhm.
but I never sit down and have the words not come. The words are always there. I'm never afraid I'm going to run out of juice. The words are there, the ideas are there. My only concern is, will I have enough time to get them all down, or get some of them down, anyways.
Yeah. Do you have like a set daily routine that you do? I mean, I know it's kind of difficult being a
Mhm.
professor and so forth, and
Yeah,
also trying
yeah,
to write.
yeah.
But do when you decide that you're going to sit down to write, do you have to do something particular before you start writing? And do you type or do you handwrite?
I definitely type, and I guess I can show you my weird keyboard if it'll stretch this high. Will it? Yeah. See, I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But man, I am fat. It's like telepathy or telekinesis, kind of a combination of the two. It's like my fingers. I don't need to think about my fingers. My thoughts just appear on the screen, which is really nice. And when I do longhand, when I go back to look at it, there's always like numbers mixed in with the letters, and like I've got all this. Like I've had a lot of head trauma, so things aren't wired right. So I'll spell there with a 3 and a X. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So typing is the way to go for me. I don't have a schedule. I never have had a schedule. I'm always waiting to grow up and have a schedule, but I just steal time whenever I can, and or whenever I need to hide from the world. Also, like when there's chores that need doing, the lawn needs mowing, the oil needs change, whatever it is. then I always sneak in here and I'm writing. I can't do all that stuff, but because I don't like to do stuff. I like to write. Writing is playing with dragons, and who wouldn't want to play with dragons rather than mow the grass? Mowing the grass. Who cares if the grass gets mown? I
Yeah,
don't think. I don't think the grass cares.
it doesn't. It'll either just keep growing or burn out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So for those who haven't read The Only Good Indians, can you give like maybe a brief sell on why people should read it and what it's about?
Yeah. Well, I don't know why you should read it, but I can tell you what it's about. The Only Good Indians is four guys are out in the field after elk one afternoon before Thanksgiving. They're up in the Blackfeet Reservation, and they think it's their last day. They'll get to go out in the field together. So all bets are off. Whatever fills their freezer is the right thing to do, and that leads them to kind of commit a trespass against not only the elk but their community. They're basically taking food off of someone else's plate or keeping somebody else's freezer empty, anyways. And they leave that day, and I mean, they get a slap on the wrist, but nothing bad happens. And 10 years later, something bad is starting to happen. Something remembers that day a lot better than they do, and the hunters are becoming the hunted, basically. And I guess the other way to sell it is that there's a lot of basketball in it. So if basketball is something you want to read about, this is the novel for you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember it being a lot more horrifying than that, but yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, so and that one's out now. That one actually just came out not so long
Mm-hmm.
ago. Now, next Tuesday, we have Night of the Mannequins. So from
Yep.
another novella from Tor.com. Actually, I got my arc, and then I went ahead and did the Nightworms box, so I could get me a little signed copy. So,
Nice. You get the
I
final
really
copy.
enjoyed it. Oh, you don't have the
I
copy yet?
don't have a final copy yet, so it's neat that like 600 people have the final copy and I don't. That's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, kind of, back to your love of slashers. This is definitely a slash fest for sure.
Mhm.
Doesn't really start out that way and takes a completely different twist than you really.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about Night of the Mannequins, kind of how you came up with
Yeah.
the story idea, and again what we can expect next Tuesday.
The story idea, if there was a story idea, just mannequins are scary. That was my story idea, and wouldn't it suck if a mannequin was killing you, and I think it would. So I wrote the novella, but it's as you of course know, it's a hard novella to sum up because there's spoily stuff, but I can give away a little bit of the premise anyways. It's these kids, when they were 12 years old, they're in high school now. When they were 12, they found a mannequin down at the kind of dry creek bed, and it was their best friend for the summer. They played with it. It did all their pranks with them. It was the best friend they could have. And then they forgot about it. They left it in the garage. And until they bring it out for one last big prank down at the movie theater, they set it up in the theater to surprise the manager, to kind of put the manager off his game, or the assistant manager, I should say. And at the end of that movie, the prank turns around on them, and for the rest of the novel, it really turns around on them, and a whole lot of people did.
I don't feel like many people are left alive in your books.
No, there's not. Like part
There's a
two, part
trend
twos.
there.
Yeah, part twos are pretty rare, in horror.
Yeah, and I have to agree, mannequins are freaking creepy. It doesn't matter if they're. I mean, honestly, clothed probably aren't as creepy as unclothed.
Yeah,
walking through a store. It's a
yeah,
little. What's not jarring? I don't know if jarring's the word.
yeah, yeah.
It makes you a little uneasy, I guess.
It does. It does. Yeah.
They only have eyes.
Yep. Yeah. No. It's like these giant Ken dolls that are just kind of watching you from wherever you are.
Yeah, yeah, and then what is it? I Am Legend with Will Smith when
Mhm.
he's a mannequin friend, and then all of a sudden he's like in a different spot.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. It could be that's where the novella comes from. I don't know. I did like that opening to that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give a hint? Kind of, I guess what we can expect next. I know you said it's a
Mhm.
little bit under wraps and so forth, but do you
Mhm.
have more some more slashers in mind, or
I
are you
do. I should have
go
another
for?
slasher out next summer. I'm not allowed to say the title out loud yet, except for when I'm not on a microphone. Then I can say it all I want, I guess. But I can't announce it. I should say I can't leak it out. But yeah, it's a slasher, and it's Jason and Freddy and Michael just turned up to 80.
I gotcha. Any books you've read recently that you'd recommend?
Yeah, the Luminous Dead, Caitlin Starling, is that her name? Caitlin Starling? Yeah, Caitlin Starling, I think. Luminous Dead, it's a science fiction novel about a caver on another planet. And I love caves and I love science fiction, and it's also horror. So it's like everything I like in one place. If they would have included some beef jerky, it would have been the dream experience. Let me think. Oh, I just read Carmen Machado's The Lolo Woods comic book, the first 6 issues of that comic book. It may be the only 6 issues. I'm not sure if it's going to go further or not. It's in Joe Hill's Hill House line at DC, and man,
Okay.
that is some really good horror. I was completely impressed with that. I could not have been more impressed.
I'll have to look that one up.
Mhm.
I I read Lock and Key, and that kind of got me like really into reading comics
Mhm.
and novels, and I kind of got on with Image to read a lot of their newer stuff, and just kind
Yeah,
of slacked off. But I've read like Witches and stuff.
yeah,
Snyder wrote
yeah,
Witches, I
yeah.
think.
It's Scott Snyder and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Josh Jewett. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff like really got with me, and that kind of got me into reading like Colin Bunn,
Mhm.
and a
Mhm.
few others. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. I love horror
yeah.
and comics and graphic novels for sure.
Yeah,
So
and Cullen Bunn, he's a go-to man. That guy, he knows horror and he knows comics as well as anybody. And I'm so impressed with every one of his pieces. Like, really, probably two of my favorite writers in comic books right now are Cullen Bunn and Jeff Lemire. Those are two of my
yes,
favorites. And
yes,
Ben Percy too. Ben Percy's killing it on Wolverine right now. He killed it on Green Arrow for a while, and now he's killing it on Wolverine.
yeah. And Jeff's still working on Gideon Falls, right? Isn't that the
I
new?
think so. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think he's like 20 or 24
Yeah.
deep into that one. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's insane, kind of what you can find out there that
Mhm.
you don't even have to read novels. I mean, you can be scared to death. I mean, especially with the pictures and stuff they throw in those.
Yeah.
Got a question for you. What horror novels gave you chills?
Oh man, all of them really. Probably one of my scariest reads was Sarah Grant's "Come Closer." I think it's maybe from 2006, and I think Paul Tremblay is the one who told me to read that back forever ago. And that novel just gets under my skin. I've read it, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 times, and every time I read it, I leave unsettled and disturbed and suspicious of everything around me. And that's exactly what horror should do for us. I think it should sensitize us to our world, and
Mhm.
Come Closer does that for me 100%.
I think I grabbed that one not too long ago. I think it was like a Kindle deal or something. And
Mhm.
everybody always reads that Tremblay. Tremblay is actually the reason that I read Mongrels.
Oh, neat, neat.
Yeah, I know a mutual friend of his that is also a horror writer. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hank Early,
Yeah, I know him.
Top Mantooth. Yeah. So we kind of got to talk, and that's kind of how we met.
Mhm.
We were talking about Tremblay.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean that it's just it's crazy how things link up that way. So
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
I feel like he's always pushing books and
Yeah,
get
no,
so
Paul's a wonderful. He's a wonderful like hub because he reads a lot, and he remembers what he reads too. I don't always remember what I read. But yeah, but John or Hank Early, I think I blurbed his first collection if I'm not mistaken. It really impressed me. I really liked it a lot.
the shoebox train wreck.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, yep.
Yeah, I read his first. Oh gosh, I can't even think of the name of the trilogy. And I've got the books over here. Heaven's Crooked
Uh,
Figure.
uh, yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and I've got the other two books by him. But yeah,
yep.
it's always fun finding kind of new writers. But it just so happened that he was so he teaches at a middle school here locally, and
Mhm,
I was a substitute teacher for several months, and actually
mhm.
I was one of his subs for a little bit. And that's kind of how we met. And
Oh, cool.
so yeah, it's a small world.
Nice, nice.
um, well, man, I know we've been going for about 50 minutes now. Is there any last minute things you wanna tell the audience, or anything that maybe
Um,
brought up?
I guess I'll just say buy from independent bookstores. Keep the industry going.
Yeah, especially with how everything's going right now, for sure. So
hmm hmm
I think I've got one last one for you. What have been some of your favorite books of this year?
Of this year, Grady's The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, Paul's Survivor Song. I just read Sherry Dimoline's Empire of Wild, which was a take on the werewolf, which I had not read, and really, really cool. Rebecca Roanhorse's upcoming Black Sun is amazing. Josh's Mallory is blew me away. Like I couldn't imagine that he kept the world unfolding in that cool way. I was really, really impressed with that. Like I said, The Luminous Dead. Man, I've read so much. I can't. Those are the ones I remember right offhand, anyways.
Yeah. Hey, you're better than most. I ask favorite reads. I usually have to do it before we go on chat because people are like, give me like 5 minutes. I got to go find them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I haven't read a couple of those, but I read Survivor Song back
Mhm,
in January, and then of course Mallory, I think in March.
mhm,
Those books are absolutely phenomenal. Uh,
mhm.
and I've been meaning to get to Southern Book Club.
Yeah,
Just the premise of it alone makes me want
yeah.
to read it. So, uh,
Oh,
and I've heard a lot of great things about Grady's work. So,
yeah. No, Grady's he's really good. He's really meticulous, and by the time you see a book, you've probably seen a third of what he's written.
right.
You're only seeing the good stuff. I mean, it's probably all good, but what he thinks is good, anyways.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen, I appreciate you coming on, chatting with me tonight. It's always great talking to you about books, especially Night of the Mannequins. Again, it comes out on Tuesday. Definitely go out and grab it, in paperback or an ebook. Again, it's from Tor.com, and then we'll be looking forward to your next slasher. Hopefully, we can hear a little bit more about it sooner rather than later.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. It was great talking.
Absolutely. You enjoy the rest of your week.
Take it easy, man.
Thanks, man.